Today we are going to find the real zeros of the polynomial f of x equals 3x cubed plus 4x squared minus 7x plus 2. And we know by the rational zero theorem that if a polynomial has rational zeros, any rational zeros, they will be of the form p over q, where p is a factor of the constant term, which is 2, so the factors of 2 are 1 and 2, and q is a factor of the leading coefficient, which is 3, and the factors of 3 are 1 and 3. So when q takes on the value 1, p over q will be 1 and 2. When q assumes the value 3, p over q will be 1/3 or 2/3. So if this polynomial has rational roots, the only possibilities are plus or minus 1, 2, 1/3, or 2/3. Now we know by the factor theorem that if c is a zero of a polynomial, then f of c must equal 0. So we can evaluate f of 1 directly. F of 1 equals 3 plus 4 is 7, minus 7 is 0, plus 2 is not 0. That equals 2, so 1 is not a zero of this polynomial. We can, by inspection, we can evaluate f of negative 1, and again, we will not get 0. So to try the other values, we'll use synthetic division, and I'm going to try 2/3. And so we'll write down the coefficients 3, 4, negative 7, and 2. Now we'll bring down the 3, and 2/3 times 3, the 3's divide out and we're left with 2. Add these two values up, we'll get 6. Multiply it times 2/3. 3 goes into 6 twice. 2 times 2 is 4. Again, we'll add, we get negative 3. 2/3 times negative 3. The 3's divide out. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. There's our 0. Hey, because the remainder is 0, that tells us that f of 2/3 equals 0. So 2/3 is a 0 of this polynomial. So we'll write f of x as x minus 2/3 times 3x squared plus 6x minus 3. Now we'll factor a 3 out of each of these terms, and so equals 3 times x minus 2 over 3 times x squared plus 2x minus 1. And now we'll distribute that 3 through this factor, this linear factor. And the reason we're going to do that is because we will wind up with a simpler product. 3x minus 2 times x squared plus 2x minus 1. So I'm about out of board, So I'll go to another board, and we have f of x equal to 3x minus 2 times x squared plus 2x minus 1. Our next task is to find the zeros of this quadratic factor. This factor does not factor, so we'll use the quadratic formula. X equals minus 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 4 times negative 1 is plus 4 all over 2. So x equals minus 2 over 2 plus or minus the square root of 8 over 2. So x equals minus 1 plus or minus the square root of 8 simplifies to 2 root 2, and that is over 2, and the 2's divide out. So x equals negative 1 plus or minus root 2. These are the zeros of this quadratic factor, and 2/3 is the zero of the linear factor. So our zeros are x equals 2 over 3 and negative 1 plus or minus root 2. Now we'll write f of x as a product of its linear factors. So 3x minus 2 times x, what's the opposite of negative 1? It's plus 1. Plus 1. What's the opposite of plus root 2? It's minus root 2. What's the opposite of minus root 2? It's plus root 2. To recap, these are the zeros of f of x. And this is f of x in terms of, written in terms of, its linear factors, and bip, bip, and we are done. We are done.